people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. The Errol Spence Jr. versus Tszyu pay-per-view card turns into a USA versus Australia 3-for-3! What began as a showdown between Errol Spence Jr. and Tszyu is now turning into a USA versus Australia rivalry card. I wasn't aware of a rivalry between them. The July 25th pay-per-view in Sydney took an added dimension when former world champions Jermall Charlo and Stephen Fulton Jr. were matched against Australian opposition. Spence will headline against Tszyu, while Charlo faces Cohen Mazoudir and Fulton takes on Liam Wilson, creating three high-profile matchups between American and Aussie fighters. On the same show, the concept brings back memories of the Matchroom vs. Queensberry 5-for-5 event in Saudi Arabia, when rival promotional stables went head-to-head in a team format. Matchroom and Queensberry proved boxing fans will buy into a team rivalry. This time, it's countries rather than promoters. Yeah, but America and Australia don't actually have an established rivalry like, say, Mexico versus Puerto Rico, or the United Kingdom versus the United States. The United States and Australia don't actually have a rivalry.
Not really.
But that does seem to be the theme of the show, likening it to the Matchroom versus Queensberry 5-for-5. Even Eddie and Frank had more of an established rivalry going in than these fighters do. This is Australia versus the USA 3 times over, and every single one of those fights is legacy-defining, said No Limit promoter CEO George Rose. We've built No Limit Boxing by delivering the best events on the biggest stages, and on July 26th, we deliver the biggest stage this country has ever seen. Now, even though I don't really buy into the whole rivalry aspect of it, I do like the theme as it is, and I do like the show. I think it'll be big in Australia, but I still question how many people are going to buy it in the United States, because here, it is a pay-per-view. Australia rarely gets cards like this, with American world champions and contenders traveling halfway around the world to face home fighters in Sydney. Jermall Charlo and Stephen Fulton are ready. It feels great to be back in the ring and to take my talents down under to Australia, said Charlo. Is that the same Jermall Charlo who could not be bothered to cross over to Matchroom to face his domestic rival, Demetrius Andrade, when they were both middleweight champions at the same time? The same guy who couldn't be bothered to cross over to fight him is now going to travel halfway around the world for a virtual unknown. A testament to how dire the situation has become for the PBC, because at the helm of the promotion, it's not actually them, the financing, all of it.
It's coming from No Limit.
That's who's paying the fighters and promoting the show. Jermall continued, Cohen Mazoudir is going to be looking to make the name off me, but he underestimates how hungry I am. It's the USA versus Australia, and Jermall Charlo is coming to take over. Stephen Fulton also embraced the challenge of fighting on enemy territory. I expect Liam to be on his A-game and take this fight as an opportunity to get a shot at a title, said Fulton. This fight is going to show that I am nowhere near finished, and to redeem myself. After my last performance, for Australian fighters, it's a chance to defend home turf. For the Americans, it's a chance to spoil the party. Either way, Spence versus Tszyu is no longer the only USA versus Australia battle on the bill. You will recall that Stephen in his last fight was thoroughly outclassed by the defending super featherweight champion O'Shaquie Foster
For what was a WBC title.
As PBC fighters often are when encountering top-ranked fighters. Usually, the PBC guy loses. Usually.
Stephen Fulton lost.
Liam Wilson, that's the guy who went hell for leather with Emmanuel Navarrete. Made him look human, which is no easy task in the super featherweight division, but I haven't soon forgotten that Liam Wilson was able to get him with some good punches, some good shots, and he's a tall drink of boxing for super feather. Of all the USA versus Australia fights on the bill, I think that's the one where the Aussie stands the best chance of winning, with Stephen Fulton coming off a loss and not really suited to campaign above 122 or 126.
Liam's a bigger guy, more height, more reach, and more room to fill out.
Might actually beat Stephen Fulton. Now, as it pertains to the former champion Jermall Charlo, returning in what's being deemed a mismatch,
They're saying that this guy he's fighting can barely make junior middleweight.
Jermall Charlo's return to the ring was supposed to answer questions. Instead, the choice of opponent has created a few more. When Charlo steps in the ring at Sydney's Kudos Bank Arena on July 26th, the undefeated former world champion will face Australia's Cohen Mazoudier on the Errol Spence Jr. vs. Tszyu undercard. The reaction was immediate. Who exactly is this guy, and what does Charlo gain from fighting him?
Mazoudier.
Is that how you pronounce that?
That's how I pronounced it.
On paper, the gulf between the two men is difficult to ignore. Charlo is 34-0, a former two-weight world champion and one of the most recognizable names on the entire card.
Mazoudier.
Whereas Mazoudier sports a record of 15 wins with 4 losses and 1 draw, an Australian whose career has been built almost exclusively on the domestic scene. The 30-year-old is currently sitting at number 71 among BoxRec's super welterweight rankings and has never competed anywhere near world level. His most notable fight ended in a 9th-round stoppage defeat to Nikita Tszyu in 2024. That's Tim's brother.
For Mazoudier, this is unquestionably the biggest opportunity of his career. For Charlo, the upside is less obvious on paper.
What does Jermall get for traveling halfway around the world to fight a domestic-level Aussie journeyman? Because that's the kind of record he's got.
Well, it keeps him from swimming inside of a Hennessy bottle.
It gives him a reason to get back in the gym, get back in camp, get back in shape, and stay out of trouble, is the most I can see.
He shouldn't even be the Charlo fighting on this bill.
In a very general sense, I don't see what the point is in wheeling out Jermall Charlo periodically the way they have year after year, when it's clear this guy's done competing at world level as a boxer at the highest level. He's not winning a title from nobody at 168, where this contest is supposed to be taking place.
The guy he's fighting, Mazoudier, is not even a natural super middleweight. The Australian has spent his career campaigning at 154 and routinely weighs in right under the limit. His last 5 weigh-ins have all come under the super welterweight benchmark. Now he's jumping up 2 divisions to face a former middleweight world champion at 168. Mazoudier deserves credit for accepting the challenge. Most fighters would jump at the opportunity. The bigger question is what Charlo gains from it.
Well, it keeps him from swimming inside of a Hennessy bottle.
At 36 years old, Charlo is no longer a developing prospect gaining experience. He's an established former champion who has spent years competing at a far higher level than anything Mazoudier has encountered.
Why is the guy even still fighting?
Because it's all he knows how to do. I mean, in spite of not being able to compete at world level anymore, Jermall Charlo's got bills to pay like the rest of us.
So that's what he's doing. He's fighting to keep the lights on, food in the fridge, and gas in the tank. That's what it's for. He is a fighter by trade, after all.
He still shouldn't be the Charlo that's fighting on this show.
After years of inactivity and personal issues outside of the ring, activity may simply be the priority. Maybe the sights of Australia were too good to turn down. Whatever the reason, this looks more like a fight designed to get rounds into Charlo's legs, that one intended to tell us where he stands among the leading names at super middle. The matchup forms part of a major Sydney event headlined by Errol Spence Jr. and Tim Tszyu, with Stephen Fulton facing Liam Wilson in the chief support bout, and several Aussie Olympians also appearing on the card.
Still shouldn't be the Charlo that's fighting on this show, given that the winner of the main event is intended to square off against former undisputed junior middleweight champion Jermall Charlo. So if you were gonna get any one of the Charlo brothers a tune-up fight like this one, it should have been Jermall, not Jermall.
Jermall's not the one that's being built up towards anything. I mean, say Jermall Charlo goes in there with this guy, beats him, he disappears for another year inside a bottle of cognac. And then what? He's been fighting in tune-up fights, just like this one, for at least 2, 3, 4 years now?
I think if the goal is to match the winner of the main event against Jermall Charlo, not Jermall, it should have been Jermall fighting in a tune-up fight on this show, not Jermall. What's the real point in keeping Jermall Charlo active.
I think the bill will do good business in the land down under, in Australia. But in the United States, it's hard to say that American boxing fans are going to kick out $75 to watch this show.
Because to the Aussies, it's a chance to see American fighters live in action that they don't otherwise get to see. But for the Americans, it's just a bunch of glorified tune-up fights. A tune-up fight for Stefan, another for Jamal, and another for Errol.
And I don't even know how invested they can be in Errol Spence Jr. at this point when he just told Andre Ward this might be the last time that he fights.
This bill is a testament to how dire the situation has become at the PBC, because at one point, you couldn't get these guys to travel to another side of the street, much less another continent.
You couldn't get these guys to fight their domestic rivals, much less guys in another part of the world. And we all know American fighters don't often concede home field advantage. The bigger names on the bill are supposed to be the Americans.
So why are they the ones traveling?
Because the PBC doesn't have any money. And because this kind of show is bigger on another continent than it is in this one.
I don't mind it. I'm actually going to buy it myself. I want to see what happens in the main event. I want to see what happens when Errol and Tim lock horns, because if nothing else, I do expect that to be a firefight. I expect that to be a good one.
I think it's going to end in a knockout. It's just a question of who gets knocked out. Is it Errol, 3 years removed from the sport and coming off a crushing defeat? Or is it Tszyu?
Breaking in a new trainer in Jeff Fennick, who may have been a world champion himself, but he never trained one.
Let's not pretend that Tszyu hasn't been through the ringer a couple of times, because he has.
There's genuine intrigue in there, albeit for the wrong reasons, but I like it, and I'm gonna buy it.
Men's heavyweight news, veteran promoter Frank Warren is comfortable with Tyson Fury arrangement, but Netflix might hold the promoters as cards. Frank Warren has said neither he nor Matchroom can promote the heavyweight fight between Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua if it happens on Netflix. Warren was speaking to Talk Sport, where he was questioned about his working relationship with Fury and the fight itself.
Well, I guess they must have smoothed things over between Frank Warren and Turki Alalshikh, since not that long ago, Frank filed a lawsuit against him. But if he's now content with the arrangement, they must have compensated him.
Tyson hasn't signed for anybody at this moment in time. Where we are now, I have my arrangement, which I'm very, very comfortable with, and we have a business relationship that has worked really well and continues to work really well. Warren said of being with Fury, I have no problems whatsoever.
Says he hasn't signed for anybody. Does that mean he hasn't signed on to fight anybody? Or he hasn't signed with anybody?
Fury, of course, appeared at the UFC White House event last weekend and said announcements about his future were imminent. He then subsequently posted on social media that Turki Alalshikh would be his promoter until he ended his career.
Now, Warren said he had not been surprised to see Fury in the United States and said he was pleased to see Fury there, meaning he has a visa to enter the US.
Why, did he not have one before?
Now, Tyson Fury was one of many individuals in the sport that was banned from entering the United States due to his connection with famed cartel kingpin Daniel Kinahan. It would seem that ban has been lifted.
Life goes on as normal, added Warren, who was then asked where the heavyweight fight would take place. The last few fights that Turki Alalshikh's done, where the money's come from to promote the shows, nothing's changed. When pressed on a possible location, with the U.S. seemingly a possible spot.
As ridiculous as that sounds.
Warren added, don't know yet. It's not been decided yet. Of the broadcast situation, Warren said, we have an exclusive contract with DAZN for our UK rights. That's where we are. We have an exclusive with them. As far as Tyson's fight with Joshua, that will be on Netflix. That's the position. So, if the fight was in the UK and not on Netflix, we couldn't promote it anyway. Eddie Hearn's in the same position.
He said it without saying it.
Warren said he was confident that another heavyweight bout, the rematch between WBO champion Daniel Dubois and Fabio Wardley, would take place later in the year, but reverting back to Joshua versus Fury and asked whether it should take place. In the UK, Warren said, it's where it should be. They're two Brits.
He said it without saying it. He basically confirmed the fight is going to be on Netflix, but it being on Netflix, neither he or Eddie can promote it. So if they're not the ones promoting it, who is?
Turki Alalshikh's the one paying everybody, right?
Tyson Fury said Turki's his promoter until his career ends, henceforth.
Turki Alalshikh, who wants Dana White, Eddie Hearn, Frank Warren, and DAZN at one table to end boxing's promotional wars.
There is a historical precedent for such a perspective when, from the very beginning when Turkey entered into the boxing space, that's what he started off doing, bringing everybody together.
I'll do my best to do a meeting soon between my brothers Dana White, Nick Khan, Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn, and my partners and friends DAZN to make peace and a revolution for boxing. I hope I succeed and boxing fans see the white smoke rise from the chimney, said Turkey on X. The reference to white smoke appeared to draw inspiration from the Vatican tradition that signals an agreement has been reached following the election of a new pope. Alalshikh's comments come at a time when boxing remains divided among rival promoters, broadcasters, and sanctioning bodies. Despite a recent increase in cross-promotional events, the Saudi financier has become one of the sport's most influential figures over the last few years, helping make fights that many fans believed would never happen because of promotional barriers. He also explained why he feels a sense of urgency about bringing the major players together.
I want to do it before losing my memory. I'm afraid in 2028 or 2029 I'll forget my own name, said Turkey.
This one will go over some people's heads and just be seen as hyperbole, which it could be, but it was reported in the New York Times last year that Alalshikh was suffering from serious health issues, including a tumor in his brain.
Remember many months ago that there was some talk of Turkey's declining health, but we didn't know specifically at the time what it was.
The remarks quickly generated discussion among boxing fans. While many welcomed the idea of greater cooperation between the sport's leading promoters and broadcasters, others questioned whether such a meeting could realistically resolve the political battles that have existed for decades. Some critics also pointed to Alalshikh's growing partnership with Dana White and TKO's Zuffa boxing venture, arguing that the arrival of another major promotional force has further complicated boxing's power structure. Others countered that White's involvement could help bring more structure and cooperation to a fragmented sport. Turkey appears determined to try. If the meeting takes place, it would bring together several of the most powerful figures in boxing and combat sports for a conversation aimed at finding common ground in a business that has long been defined by rivalries outside of the ring.
If Turki Alalshikh is battling a health crisis behind the scenes, away from the prying eyes of the boxing community, my heart goes out to him, well wishes, and prayers.
What it reminds us of is our own mortality, that even one such as Turki Alalshikh, with all of his money,
his resources, and perhaps access to the best doctors, the best treatments, anywhere in the world,
he is still only human, just like the rest of us, and still just a boxing fan who wants to see good boxing matches. Those are the ties that bind. Can he find a truce? Can he make a peace between these feuding factions? And I believe he can, because when he entered into the space, that was the first thing he did.
Get all the promoters together and get them working together to make the best fights for the best shows.
It sounds like Turkey wants to leave the sport in a better state than when he found it.
Hope that guy's okay.